Hey guys, Gregory here, and today we're going to talk about how to tune the guitar using a tuner. It's important that our guitar is in tune before attempting to play anything, otherwise nothing we play is going to sound quite right. Okay, so there are two things that I want us to be aware of, to be a bit familiar with before we get into how to tune, and those are knowing names of the strings on the guitar and also being a bit familiar with the musical alphabet. Alright, so let's start with the names of the strings. Alright, so the names of the strings on the guitar, we have 6 strings, alright, and they're named E, A, D, G, B, and E. Now if you remember from my first video, we had a little acronym that went Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. That's just to help you remember the names of the strings. Now they're named as such because when we play these strings, we expect to hear those notes. An E note, an A note, a D note, a G note, a B note, and another E note. Alright? Now the problem is, as human beings, we can't exactly tell what an E is supposed to sound like, or an A, or a D. Right? We're pretty bad at guessing notes, at least for most of us. So that's where we need the help of a tuner. So the tuner is going to tell us precisely when the pitch of a string matches what we call an E note or an A note or a D note or whatever note. Alright? Now, in addition to which we can tune these strings to any note from the musical alphabet. It doesn't matter so much. There are many different tunings available to us as guitarists, but it is this specific ordering of notes E, A, D, G, B, E that we call standard tuning. And it is from this standard tuning that we find most of our common chord shapes that we learn as guitarists. Alright? So with that said, we can move on to the musical alphabet now. Now, the musical alphabet is similar to your regular English alphabet, but it's also very different. Now, in your English alphabet, we have 26 letters, but in the musical alphabet, we have 12. But they are similar in that in the musical alphabet we have the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So that gives us 7 of the 12 notes that we're looking for. The remaining 5 notes can be found in between most of these 7 notes. Alright? But before I give you the names of these notes, I need us to get familiar with 2 terms. That's going to help us to kind of remember what the names of these notes are. Right? So these 2 terms are 1, sharp, and 2, flat. So in music, we could just quite simply think of sharp as something being higher, right? Usually 1 note higher, whereas flat is usually a note that is lower or 1 note lower, all right? So let's go back to the alphabet. We're going to start from A, and then we're going to make our way through the alphabet, and we're going to fill in the names of these missing notes. Alright, so there should be a diagram on your screen now that's going to help me explain this. Alright, so the missing notes now. Each of these missing notes, they actually have 2 different names. But we can call it by any one. Any one is fine for now, especially as beginners, it doesn't matter which one. So let's start at A. So in between A and B, we have this missing note. We can think of it as the note higher than A, which gives us A sharp, right? Sharp meaning higher. Or we could think of it as a note below B, which gives us B flat, flat meaning lower. And that's pretty much what we're going to use to figure out the names of all of these missing notes. So we have A, then A sharp, or B flat, and then B. So moving on from B now, we can see that B and C are next to each other, and there's nothing in between those 2. This is a bit important to remember, all right? So moving on from C now, I want you to try to guess what the name of the note between C and D is by pausing the video. And then I'm going to give you the answer. So pause. Alright, so here's the answer. After C, we can think of the note in between C and D as the note higher than C, which gives us the name C sharp. Or we could think of it as the note lower than D, which gives us the name D flat. So C sharp or D flat. And then we have D. And then after D, it's going to be the same thing. We can think of the note after D as the note higher than D, which gives us D sharp. Or we could think of it as a note lower than E, which gives us E flat. All right? And then we're on to E. And just like B and C were next to each other, E and F are also right next to each other, right? Nothing in between. This is important to remember. B and C, E and F. Those two pairs of notes, nothing in between. Okay, so let's move on now from F. After F, we have the note, we can think of it as the note higher than F, which gives us F sharp, or we can think of it as the note lower than G, which gives us G flat. All right, and then we have G. So we're coming down to the last note here. The note after G could quite simply be seen as the note higher than G, which gives us G sharp. But what is its flat name? Well, if we were to take it one note further, we would actually restart the alphabet. We would actually get back to A. So if you see that on the diagram there, it should be fairly easy to understand what that missing note is called, the flat name. It can be seen as a note lower than A, which gives us A flat. So the last note is G sharp or A flat. And that's pretty much the musical alphabet. Once again, the easiest way to kind of remember the entire thing is to remember those two pairs of notes that are next to each other, B and C, E and F, and then whenever you're ascending, just think sharp. A sharp, C, then C sharp, D, then D sharp. Or if you're descending the alphabet, you can just for now think of the note before D as D flat, or the note before B as B flat. It's perfectly fine for now, especially as a beginner. All right, so let's get into tuning the guitar now. Let's talk a little bit about tuners. Tuners are fairly easy to come by these days, mainly because we can just download an app on our phone that functions as a tuner, or we can actually buy a physical tuner. Now, generally, they all tend to work in one of two ways. They would either pick up the sound of the instrument through a microphone, a built-in microphone, or they would pick up the sound of the instrument through being in physical contact with the instrument itself, such as being clipped on or being plugged in to the tuner. All right? So with that said, the tuners generally have two modes that they operate in, right? And we have chromatic mode and we have guitar mode. So in chromatic mode, what the tuner is going to do is going to tell us how far away a note is from any one of the 12 notes in music, in the musical alphabet. Whereas in guitar mode, the tuner is going to tell us how far away a note is from either E, A, D, G, B, or E. All right? So what I'm going to do next is we're going to talk about how to actually tune the guitar now using the tuner. But I'm going to use two tuners. One is going to be in chromatic mode and one is going to be in guitar. And you'll see how they vary. So let's do it. So here we are. We have a nice zoom in with two tuners, two clip-on tuners. Now I must say clip-on tuners are very handy to have regardless of being able to have an app on your phone, because we can just leave them on the head of the guitar most times and they're just readily available. Also, another good reason to have a clip-on tuner is that they are hardly interrupted by other noises in your room, such as talking or other instruments playing music. All right? So on each of these tuners here, I have this one here in guitar mode. There's a little G there that represents guitar. And on the one on my right here, this is in chromatic mode. There's a little C. Now these tuners tend to have other modes. So for example, there's a B now there that means bass, and V for violin, and U for ukulele. But of course, we're not interested in those. We're interested in guitar and chromatic, right? So C is for chromatic. All right, so I've taken the liberty to detune my guitar, and we're going to go through each of the strings step by step to kind of see how these tuners would work in both of these modes. So here we go. I'm starting from now. I will point to the string so that you'll know. This is the 6th string or the low E string here. I'm going to play it now and we're going to take a look at the readings and I will interpret them for you. So, all right. So I just played my low E string, or what's supposed to be an E. And we can see here on the guitar mode tuner, it's detecting that yes, it can tell that we're close to E. But the arrow here, this pointer here, is all on the left, right? Whereas the one on the right, the tune on the right, it's telling me that the note is actually close to D sharp, all right? And then the needle is a little bit to the right of the tuner. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, whenever we're attempting to tune a note, the tuner is going to give us the note it's closest to in the center, all right? If we want this string that we're playing to be in tune with the note that we're seeing on the screen, the needle must go to the center of the screen there. And usually what happens, it tends to light up a different color, like green or so. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start to tune the note. Now D sharp, if you remember from the alphabet, is actually one note lower than E. Okay? And you'll notice that this needle would begin to move, but this needle will stay put. This needle will actually only start moving when this one gets to E. Right? So this is it. Let's go. I'm tuning it up. Now, generally speaking, to tune up a string on the guitar, we tend to want to turn it away from us. All right? I can't remember right now that's clockwise or anti-clockwise, but away from us. All right? So here we go. Now the reason I'm playing it over and over is so that the reading stays on the screen. Right? So it went up a little bit, but this one hasn't moved yet. It's going to change to E now, the one on the right. Right? And now you'll see that they both start to move in sync more or less. Right? Because they both detect that, okay, we're on E. Let's get to the middle. So to get to the middle means that we are actually in tune. All right, great. So they both just lit up green, right? Which means that this string is now properly in tune to E. Okay, so let's do it for the next string. The next string is the A string. All right. Okay, so what's going on here? On the one on the left, it's telling me, yeah, I can tell you're close to A, but you're too high because the needle is on the right, whereas the one on the right is giving me a more accurate representation. It's telling me you are actually closer to A sharp, but you're a little bit lower than A sharp. That's what the needle in the middle, it's a bit to the left of the middle. So it means that, yeah, okay, you're close to A sharp, but a little bit lower to it. So these both tell me what I need to do. It means I need to go down. I need to flatten my A string. So I'm going to flatten it or lower it by turning the tuner toward me, right? And you would notice the one on the right would start to move down, and the one on the left is only going to start to move when I get closer to A. It should start to move about now, see? So it's moving down, they're both moving in sync more or less. And I'm going to get in the center, right? All right, and now that one is in tune. So my A string is in tune. Now just a quick tip, generally speaking, it's better to tune up into a note than it is to tune down. The string tends to stabilize better when you tighten into the note rather than to loosen into the note, right? But for now, we're just going with this. All right, so we're on to the D string now. All right, so they're both telling me that, yeah, you're close to D, and you're just a little bit lower than D because the needle is a little bit to the left. So all I need to do is tighten this by turning it a little bit to the away from me, right? And then a little bit more, and they should be in tune. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next string, which is the G string now, the third string. Right, once again, they're both detecting that, yeah, you're close to G, you're just a little bit low. So we're just gonna turn this one away from us again, just to tighten it, and we're gonna get that needle in the middle. And there we go. So our G string should now more or less be in tune, right? Sometimes it wobbles a little bit, that's fine. All right, so next string is the B string now. All right, so what is this one saying? So the B string, according to the tuner, the guitar mode tuner is just telling me, well, I can tell you're close to B, but you're just lower than where you need to be. That's why the needle is on the left. But a more accurate representation, which is the chromatic mode, is telling me that I'm actually closer to A sharp. A sharp is just one note lower than B, if you remember from our musical alphabet. So what we need to do is we need to go higher. In both cases, the tuner is telling me to go higher. This one is telling me the needle is lower than B. This one tells me that I'm closer to A sharp. They both mean the same thing. I need to go up, right? So I'm going to go up by turning the tuner away from me. The one on the left, the guitar mode, is not going to move, but the one on the right is going to move. Right? So I'm going up, right? The one on the left is starting to detect that I'm close enough. So I need to get the needle now to the middle, right? Right, so that one is in tune. So the B string is more or less now in tune. So the last one, the high E string, I've played it, and we can see here the guitar mode is telling me, yeah, I can tell you're close to E, but you're just lower because the needle is on the left. Whereas the chromatic mode tuner is giving me a D, and it's telling me that, okay, well, you're close to D, but you're a little higher than it. That's why the needle is on the right side there. So D is actually 2 notes lower than E, right? That's quite a bit off. But like I said, just as before, they're both correct. This one is just telling me I'm lower than E. It's not telling me exactly where I am. This one is telling me exactly where I am. It's telling me, okay, you are close to D. And because I know this is the E string, I'm going to tune this one up. So I just need to go up quite a bit. The one on the left is not going to move for a little while. The one on the right is going to tell me exactly where I am. But now that I'm close to E, they're both going to be moving. And I just need to get it in the middle. And I would have it in tune. Right? Alright, so all of my strings should now be in tune. And that is how we tune using a tuner. Right? So we can use either guitar mode or chromatic mode. They're both fine. But generally speaking, the chromatic mode is a more accurate representation of where you are in the musical alphabet. Alright guys, so that was the lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. It might have been a bit of a long one, but it's a really important lesson, knowing how to tune your guitar. It's something that you're going to be doing all the time as a guitarist. So if you did enjoy the video, please like, share, and subscribe. It's going to help me grow. This YouTube thing is something new I'm doing for 2022. So it's really important to me if you kind of help me to get the video out there. So until the next lesson, have a good one.